Today's mystery topic, Dr. Kim.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just completed the task that you had put before me just 2 weeks ago. You may have forgotten about it, but I'm here to remind you what you asked me to do. You asked me, Jim, we're concerned about Europe. We're concerned that Europe might not still be there. Could you go check it out? Could you take a look and give us a report back on what the status of Europe is? And I say yes. I say, I'm at your command. You make the request, I follow through, and that is exactly what I'd like to share a few thoughts with you about. So, I thought when you said, go check out Europe, what do we think of when we think of Europe? What's the very first country that comes to mind generally?
London,
England.
UK.
Right, it's England, right? You know, 13 colonies, all that sort of stuff like that. It's always England. If you think it's not England, you're mistaken. Go back and think about it a little bit more. Okay? So, got on a plane and I flew to England. Now, what's interesting is, your very first question I'm sure you're going to ask is, how long does it take to fly from Tampa to England? Well, I'm not quite sure. It takes a little while to get up to DC, and then it's about 6 hours to fly from DC to Heathrow, which is located just outside of London. You know, back in the day, when I was much younger, 6 hours on a plane seemed like a really long time. But what's interesting is what's changed in my life recently is I flew on a plane for 17 hours to get to China. 6 hours doesn't seem so bad now. In fact, it's like, wow, we're done. That's amazing. That was a quick flight. I got settled in and then poof, we were there. So anyway, perception apparently is a key to being able to make it through extended flights. I am scheduled to go to Malaysia sometime next month. Unfortunately, I've looked it up. 32 hours. I think I've got a new perception coming my way. So anyway, so I arrived in England and actually arrived in the morning. What was interesting is I arrived at Heathrow. Now Heathrow is located, interestingly enough, on the west side of London. I actually was going to London to attend a trade show that was going to be held at a large expo center located on the east side of London, which of course presented me with a challenge. I had to get across London, and I don't know the first thing about London. So how do you do this? Strange city, strange transportation system, what's the best way to figure out how to do it? And I'm going to tell you, you already know the answer. Because the answer is Google. We ask Google everything, right? And Google always tells us what the answer is. It turns out that in Google, you can go to Google Maps and say, I'm here, Heathrow Airport, I want to get to here. Tell me how to get there using the public transportation system. It tells you exactly what station to get on at, what station to do your transfers at, and what station you want to get to. Not too shabby. Now the way I had this one planned out is I was going to get close to where I wanted to go, but I still had a walk of what appeared to be about a half a mile to a mile. It was just because there wasn't a station close to where I was going. Okay, that's cool. I can walk. That's not that big of a deal. Anyway, so I arrived with my monstrous bag, and I'm getting ready to do that, and I noticed there's a light rail that seems to go right to the expo center, which my hotel's next to. So I had a chance to make a rash decision. Would I walk for my half a mile, or would I jump on apparently an uncharted public transportation system and try it? It was cold, it was wet, I decided to take the uncharted. It actually worked out quite well. Where I went to was a place called the Expo Center. Apparently it was a very large trade show facility that was built on the outskirts of London and then promptly went bankrupt. But it was purchased by a Saudi Arabian, I'm not sure, a Middle Eastern firm from Abu Dhabi. I think hopefully I'm saying, yeah. I think it's almost like Abu Dhabi Industries or something like that, but they purchased it and they're running it and using it as a way to launder cash or whatever the story is. But actually it's very large, it's huge, and on the day that I arrived, it was the second day of a 2-day, professional beauty conference. So when I went over to check out, as you always do, I was surrounded probably by every hairstylist in the United Kingdom. Every single one of them was there. Now I didn't actually go in, but man, if I'd gone in, I probably would have walked out with like 40 or 50 pounds worth of like free makeup, which would have been great, but I'm trying to cut back on my use of makeup, so I decided not to do that. But anyway, it was a very impressive thing. The next day, the trade show that I was attending got started. This has got to be the world's most boring trade show. It was designed to appeal to people who run data centers. So if you run a data center, what do you really care about? Exciting things, okay? Like backup power generators. So just speaking as a guy, If I can do that for just a brief moment. Okay? Backup power generators are so cool. Because what we're talking about is we're talking about an engine. I mean, that's what a backup power generator is. We're talking about an engine that's roughly the size of a Hummer. Okay? And they had a couple of these planted around. They weren't running, because I think if they run, you can't hear yourself and they crank out like diesel fumes. But man, they were cool. All the guys would stand around and go, wow, looks like a Hemi. Got a Hemi in that? Well, no, it is a Hemi. It's huge, it's gigantic. So that was actually very cool. But if you've ever been to a trade show, you know that every company builds their own little booth, and then all the people stand around, people come and sell and stuff like that. How do you judge a booth? Do you judge it based on the lights? Do you judge it based on the size of the booth? Do you judge it based on the stuff they have in the booth? The answer to all those questions are, good guess, but the answer is actually no. That's not how you do it. You judge a booth by how much padding they put beneath the carpeting. And the reason is because the floors in these places are made out of concrete, which means that after a little while, your feet start killing you. So you go from comfortable display booth to comfortable display booth, just trying to give your feet a little bit of relaxation. But yeah. So anyway, I had 2 days to hang out at this booth. It was actually a very good time. I probably met, 100, 150 people. It was the weirdest thing, though. I felt like I was right in the middle of a Doctor Who episode that wasn't ending, because they all spoke really weirdly. They had like a strange little accent thing going on. It was cute, but it was really sort of weird. And they had different terms for things like car park and lift. I mean, what up with that? Probably lorry too there, right? Go figure. Anyway, it was a very good time, had a great time. What happened was after that, it was time for me to leave, and I went off to Amsterdam. Now, what was interesting is I went to Amsterdam on a Friday, which meant that work didn't actually start until Monday. So I had 2 days in Amsterdam. Discovered the most amazing thing about Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, you can get what they call pancakes. Now, what's interesting is they call them pancakes. You and I would not call these things pancakes. We would call this actually more like a pancake pizza. So it's one pancake, forget IHOP here for a moment, it's one pancake, and it is roughly the size of what? 12-inch pizza, and they will put basically pizza topping on their pancakes, right? You can get, pork, you can get pepperoni, you can get pretty much anything you want. But they still, it's at the House of Pancakes, so not International House of Pancakes, but they're very proud of it. And it's actually very thin, it's almost more like a crepe than anything else. Had this, they serve it to you, and you're like, okay, you ready for this? Because you've got effectively a pizza for one person served for you, right? You got a 12-inch pizza you're going to have to be working your way through. So anyway, Amsterdam was very good. It was interesting because Amsterdam has a very liberal drug policy. So we did go by the cannabis shops. It seemed to be cannabis and coffee. It seemed to be sort of the combination there. Don't know if Starbucks knows about this, but I'm just saying, probably very popular. You just have to be in the right state to make that one happen, probably. After that, I went on to Hamburg, spent an evening in Hamburg, and then I went off to Hanover. Now in Hanover, the largest electronics show in all of Europe was going on. It's called CeBIT, and everybody comes to this. The most amazing thing happened to me when I went to CeBIT. I walked into CeBIT, and look, I'm reasonably savvy about the world of information technology. I know the firms that play in this space. I've encountered them my entire career. I walked into CeBIT, there was huge booths being put on by companies I have never heard of in my entire life. It must just be European companies. But anyway, CeBIT is so large, it extends across, I think there's like 15 different large warehouses full of different booths. So we went through, it took me actually 2 days to make my way through the whole thing. It was most amazing. Intel was there, and they had one particular section that was their gaming tent. And they actually had kids playing video games and had audiences watching the kids play the video games. Must be a European thing, not sure. Anyway, I have come back home, and I'm here to report you, number one, Europe is still there, and number two, they seem to be doing okay. So thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Stepping in and reassuring us